No, I have not. Yeah, it doesn't mean maybe there is one out there, but I know most of the players start first of all with the support of the parents.
Okay. Yeah, because there was I just finished interviewing one of the Watford for the EPL for the English Premier, and he said there is. And so I was just wondering if we've seen it in the MLS side. But I mean, there was a story about a young player who was recruited by an English Premier League team, and this player at the age of 16 he was released, and unfortunately, this player ended up committing suicide. And one of the question is, what specific message or warning do you have for young players and parents before they make the decision on joining an academy? What should they know?
Well, I think joining an academy team is very exciting.
Yeah.
And one thing that parents and young players need to know is when you make that academy roster, you got to, I mean, before you even make it, I think it's good sometimes to have an idea. Let's say after you make the roster, you get an invitation or something like that, or if you consider to join the academy, you got to first of all see if ask yourself some questions, if it's a good fit for you in the first place, and secondly, if you make the academy, how much playing time will you be getting?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I know the training in the academy, I mean, training is very good, but players also need to play in order to develop. So you got to ask yourself those critical questions and sometimes have the conversation with the academy coach where he sees you, what's the plan, what is his plan for you.
Yeah.
And then after all those questions have been answered, then you also have to understand that joining the academy is the first step, but the work continues. Even if the coach tells you, I see you playing or starting every game on the team, or I see you playing about 50, 70% of the game or 100% of the game, it's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
You still have to do your own part as a player. So those are things that the parents and the young players, first of all, got to understand before joining the academy.
So before I decide, for example, let's say I'm a parent and I have a kid who really wants to play competitive, he wants to join a high level academy, I should be well informed on just because my player is good enough, yes, the training is going to be good. There is no guarantee, like there is no, hey, you sign with us, then you're going to become a pro, right? And understand that there is work. And as a player, you have to put commitment and dedication on your part to even stand a chance to make it.
Correct.
Okay. So now moving, I mean, I want to touch more on the parenting side. If I'm a parent and I know nothing about soccer, like I heard about it, but I have no idea, but I want to be well informed and I want my kid to encourage to become a pro, assuming that my kid, that's what he actually wants. From your experience as a coach, what advice do you give me and what should I understand as a parent?
Well, parents education, to educate the parents got to educate his or herself, first of all, about the game, understand the game, first of all, and know that it's not easy. Among the players, only about 2 or 3% of players make it to the pro level.
Yeah.
So the number of players that go pro is very, 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 very small. And parents, first of all, got to understand that and also have to know that it is a very, very tough road and they have to be willing to be patient, enthusiastic, and be supportive.
Enthusiastic, supportive, and patience.
Yes.
That patience part isn't, you are the first coach that has actually said that. Out of all like the 10, 11, you are the first one that said patience, because you can work so long. And I think this is not just soccer, but when you're pursuing something, you know, you want the outcome so bad that you neglect, hey, it takes time, right? Like I've seen, and this was me, and I've seen other players, well, they'll give up because they're not a pro at, let's say, 14. When in reality, you're just starting to develop as a player, and that patience part is super important. So I'm glad that you touched on it. But also, one of the biggest problems, I was interviewing Victor Medinas, who's also in the FC Dallas, and he said that one of the biggest reason is parents using social media, Facebook, Instagram, to promote their kid. And because the parent gets the likes and the comments, the kid sees that, and the kid actually believes that they're the next Messi already because they're getting the attention. But in reality, they're just so far away from what it takes to become a pro. And the question is, if I'm a soccer parent, how can I grasp the idea that good at the lower level doesn't mean nowhere near at like the academies or at the professional level?
Well, that's a good question, and
Yeah.
and I think it's true. That is one of the problems we have in soccer, in competitive soccer.
Yeah.
Sometimes parents instill that false sense of confidence
Yep.
in their players, and then um, the players buy into that and think that they are already among the top ones, and then they kind of relent. They don't want to work harder anymore and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So, but uh, I tried to caution my parents about um, giving players false sense of confidence. I try to have send those informations during my meetings with the parents. It's good to be positive and supportive, but I think we should sometimes know. I'm a parent, and when I talk to parents, I also try to let them understand that I look at it from a parent's side as well,
Yeah.
not just as a coach.
Yeah.
I have three young boys of my own
Okay.
who are soccer players,
Okay.
and I try to educate parents about all of these social media things and try to
Yeah.
the player, and because sometimes it ends up being it doesn't help their player that much. And I try to talk to my players as well that don't. I know we as parents sometimes we tend to be biased towards our kids. We think highly of them. We love them. We love our kids, but um, we got to be realistic sometimes. So my advice to parents is be supportive and find opportunities to let your kids compete among the best players to see where he or she stands
Yeah.
compared to those great players. Because sometimes we can be fooled when our kids are playing with good players or average players. But reality sets in when they play against great players, and then that's when we realize, oh,
Yeah, that
you know
fear,
what I've
that
done.
doubt, yeah, that fear, doubt, worry kicks in. This happened to me one time when, actually, my parents never praised me when I played, so I always had that sense of, it is what it is. But always in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm beating these players. But then when I took it up a notch, and then I'm like, oh, this is a new devil right here. That is when the fear, doubt, and believe it or not, when you haven't been exposed to that many great players, I think that you actually hide in games because you're so afraid. This is what causes for you to hide in games, not call out for the ball when you would, not jump in the air to header it, or lead someone to say, hey, mark this person right here. And because of that, the part of the social media, right? But behind scenes, my next question, when it comes to parenting, what isn't being shown on social media, the sacrifices that parents have to make? Because everybody posts this, yeah, look, my kid won a trophy, but they don't see, okay, behind, turn off social media. what's really happening behind the scenes.
You know, the love we have for our kids sometimes um, drives us to, how do I say, do post things on social media.
Yeah.
And sometimes too, I mean, sometimes it's not just about the kid, sometimes it's also about parents' ego.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Right there. You hit it. I really wanted to talk about that. uh,
So sometimes a parent, when they're posting all of those things, it's not just about hyping the kid, but it's also about trying to show off as a parent that, oh, look at it, look, I have a great player here. I have
yeah.
this.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's part of human. Like I'll have parents who, or sometimes they'll compete with each other. Like, oh, my son is going to college here. Oh yeah, well my kid, he's studying this. And it's like from the outside you see it, I'm like, come on, man. Like they're both going to college, everyone's going to choose a different path, and that ego side. But now this goes to my next question. I guess you answered it, but why do you think parents care too much about winning and not actual player development? Do you think ego has to do with it?
I think so. Yes, ego has to do with that, and again, it's to show that you see, uh, my son is better or I'm better. When the child wins, the parent feels proud, and most of the time, like I said again, it's not just being proud uh, about that play, about the child. It's just being proud of yourself, the parent,
Yeah.
which is sometimes, I mean, it doesn't help that much because players got to learn how to play the game first. When they learn how to play the game, the results gonna come. But if they start chasing a result first, then we end up not we end up missing on something very important, player development.
Yeah. And like not only that, but like you can only lose so much and develop that eventually those losses are going to turn into W's once you start getting better and you start surrounding yourself with a great team. But I feel like parents just look at like this coach from Swansea City in the EPL, he said parents focus on the now, short term. And as coaches, well, most coaches focus on long term development, focusing on the individual, right? And so I think that's where it is. And the next question, why do you think then parents blame their kids when they have a bad performance or make a bad play after the game? You know, the big old car ride home talk. Why do you think that happens?
Well, it does happen because the parents, like again, like we touched earlier, again, they have um, high expectations from the kid. They already think the kid is better than who he or she is. And when kids lose games, I think parents sometimes take it too personal because
Hmm.
I think it affects them too. They are
Oh yeah.
them personality too. Their ego is hurt because maybe, like you said again, there is that competition too. That my son is better than yours, my team is better than yours, and stuff
Hmm.
like that. But that's when patience. I always strive on patience. Patience comes in. It's not just about winning. It's about player development. And a successful player is not measured by the number of a successful youth player is not measured by the number of wins and losses on the field. It's measured by uh, where that player ends up later on in life. If he ends up being achieving his goals, whether they are playing in college or playing pro soccer or just being responsible citizens in life.
Wow. Yeah. That's super important there. Okay. Then how, since 70% of young players quit soccer because it's not fun and because of the parents, if I'm a parent, how can I make sports for my kid a fun experience instead of a do or die situation?
Well, first of all, is to emphasize about the fun. When the kids finish practice or a game, the first question should be, did you have fun? Did you enjoy it? strive about having fun first. And then you see the kids, it will take away the pressure from the, because one thing that makes kids quit is the pressure from parents, pressure from coaches,
Yeah.
pressure from teammates. I mean, there's just pressure all around. So if we try to focus a little bit more on having fun first,
Mm,
and then competition, talk about pressure, but good pressure,
yeah.
I think it will help keep many kids uh, in soccer.
Okay. So now I want to move into the psychological part of soccer, confidence. It can be a great asset for a player or the biggest weakness. And part of confidence is having a strong attitude, a strong sense of worth for yourself. If I'm a young player and I have really no support around me, let's say with parents, how can I start developing true confidence without being arrogant, but still maintaining in a humble state of being?
Can you can you please take that again?
So if I'm a young player, right,
Yeah,
confidence can be your greatest asset or your biggest weakness. If I'm
yeah.
a young player, I have no support around me, no parents, no great coaches. How do I develop self-confidence without going into the arrogant side, but still remaining in the humble state of being?
Well, I think that's a very good question. And self-confidence, like you said, can be good and can be bad. But you can benefit from it if you know where to draw that line.
Okay.
Yeah, because you need self-confidence to succeed in soccer. You need to be sure that you can make it. If you don't have the self-confidence, it is not there. If you are successful, you also want to make sure that you don't get carried away by the success you're having. You still try to stay humble and
Mm,
keep wanting for more. Be hungry. Keep working hard, but stay humble.
hmm. Okay. But the question is how? How do you do that? What can coaches or parents do to show it?
Well, as a coach and a parent, what I tell my players or my kids is the importance of being humble.
Okay.
Even if you're successful on the field, you play a great game today, did very well in that game, you celebrate, your confidence level is high. The next day, think about the next game. Forget about the one that
Mm,
happened today. Start looking for the next level, for the next event, and be preparing for that.
okay. So in your players, why do you think then some players are comfortable with leading, communicating, expressing, their feelings and being vulnerable, and some players struggle with confidence?
Well, I think they were not. Some of it might be they were not given that opportunity at an early stage to express themselves and be comfortable in that.
Mm, okay.
Secondly, too, it depends too on the culture, on their surrounding. If they are if they are somewhere where um, there is always negative vibe all the time,
Mhm.
then that player tends to shut down. So what I try to do in my environment is create a one where every player tries to be positive and supportive towards each other. I
Mhm.
think it encourages every player. It brings out that confidence and that um, feeling of freedom to express yourself
That's
in that
powerful right there.
environment. If you feel like you are a valued member in that environment, I think it will help you to be a leader.
Mhm. Okay. Now, resiliency. One of the other words, how to overcome or get over setbacks quickly. How do you start building resiliency at such a young age for children? Because let's say they're going to try out for an academy and they get rejected. Most would quit and say, you know what, soccer isn't for me. And not just soccer, but in life, in a career, in the relationships, whatever it is. How do you start building self-resilience at such a young age so they understand it at a deep level?
Well, in my case, I think I'm fortunate because I have I have personal experience in life that I share with my players. I tell them about my stories growing
That's
up.
that's powerful right there.
So when they hear from you, or they see a coach who has gone through obstacles, or an individual who wanted to dreaming about playing soccer at a higher level and had some upsets and challenges here and there, whether it's just the support not being there. For example, just a small introduction of myself. I was born in Cameroon, which is in Africa. And during those days, uh, support, kids growing up, we didn't have the support that kids have these days.
Wow.
Yes, just like let's say the training environment, the training facility, equipment, and stuff like that. It wasn't there, but that still did not stop me from dreaming big. So sharing my stories with young players, I think, has really helped my players overcome resilience, become resilient in soccer and overcome some of the challenges that they have.
That's strong, sharing that story, because there isn't something than sharing your own story. Because first off, like what you said, even though I was born in situations where most people would say impossible, you still in your mind, you're like, that doesn't stop me from dreaming big and going for what
Yes.
I want. And most players or most people would say, oh crap, I was born in whatever country, this stopped me. Right. But like, for example, like my father, he came to the US at 17 from Honduras. Right. So very tough, and in the middle of the war where there was a lot of shooting, and he made it. And obviously I think that helps because it's in the DNA, right? He had the courage to leave. But not only that, I think it comes down to the parent putting the child in uncomfortable situations so that they can test them. Always be willing to test the child. Like for me, my father always took me to the orchard, the fields. It was like 80, 90 degrees. And even though I still remember, I'm like, why would he do that? He said, I just really wanted to prepare you for the real world. That's,
Yeah.
and I was like, and to be honest, that's just the best way I knew it, because that's how my father prepared me.